We've got a lot to get to on another Off the Record on the Rocks. We are deep in December. Winter is upon us in maybe more ways than one. Spring, hope springs eternal, as it feels like just the ride that we are on. I don't even know where to begin in the news and in the headlines. There's so much FUD and nonsense happening. And meanwhile, Bitcoin Treasury 21 Public is going public just because they have $4 billion in BTC. Literally, that is their only qualification for listing as an IPO. I've been calling it here. It's craziness in the markets before Christmas, before the big holiday end of 2025 rally. What's it like on the bluebird sky West Coast?
You know, we have a little summer and winter lined up at least through the weekend. High 70s, low 80s, depending on where you are on the Upper East Side of Los Angeles. People are calling in sick, taking mental health days, and just out having bottomless mimosas at Front Porch in Culver City and, you know, enjoying exactly why it is our property taxes are orders of magnitude higher than most places in the United States. So hard to complain, but man, you talk about the FUD and the noise and basically this backdrop of everyone who has a whole lot of money is starting to realize that they can just park it somewhere and just start living off of meager interest, which when you're talking $4 billion, meager interest is actually something very significant. I mean, it's insane to me what these guys are doing. You're talking about Tether, talking about MrBeast. Let's talk about everyone that you know who's got cash and influence becoming a bank.
You live long enough to become a bank. You stay in the game long enough to become a bank. The bank set the rules. They set the price. They control the market. You know, maybe only 18 months ago, the big Hollywood studios there in LA were talking about they couldn't pay their writers because of artificial intelligence and the writers' strike and what this meant for ownership of these creative properties. And then fast forward to December of 2025, and you've got hostile takeovers in the hundreds of billions of dollars. All of a sudden, these billions show up, these cash reserves. Speaking of cash reserves, you've got Michael Saylor talking about his creation in MicroStrategy or Strategy's creation of this cash reserve. I forget how he framed it, but they're just putting enough US dollars on the sideline, enough of an insurance that they could operate and still pay dividends for 21 months. Again, I just mentioned 21 shares going public, the big hostile takeover at the IP level. You've got Bitcoin denominated life insurance. Talk about like just the wild, wild west. And we can peel all of these headlines apart. Why now? Why December 2025 is all of a sudden there a need for Bitcoin denominated life insurance? I didn't even know that could exist. Vanguard says you can now buy Bitcoin into my 4K. Oh, that sounds great. That sounds really nice. And the Tether and the treasuries and how they are backing that particular stablecoin feels like it's all set up to fall right on time, and it's lining us up nicely for a Christmas holiday, maybe a white Christmas, who knows?
Well, I mean, also part of it is it feels like everyone who you just rattled off is sensitive. There's a sensitivity even among the headiness in the sense that, you know, pundits, it's probably just AI generated news articles that question every headline. Let's just say they're humans who are pundits, sort of postulate. P is for pundits and postulation about P is for Bitcoin is, well, what happens, Mr. Saylor, if there's a usual swing of the Bitcoin to fiat price? You know, if you look at the charts, there have been plenty of times in the last decade and change where it might have dropped 30%. It might have increased 30%. You know, these waves, they call it the natural unpredictability of the market. And so the question gets asked, well, Mr. Saylor, what's your liquidity? And everyone's talking about liquidity. Now, well, if it does drop 30%, And people who are invested in these like tracking, there's like tracking stocks that they're selling. Remind me of the names of them. I forget what they're called, but Saylor has like 2 or 3.
Well, yeah, all these derivatives,
These
the
derivatives that you can purchase.
MSTR,
Yeah, there are all these derivatives that you can buy in strategy that isn't actual Bitcoin. And then Saylor and his company take the money they've earned from selling their derivatives, which are not Bitcoin, to then go buy Bitcoin, right? So they have a lot of Bitcoin on the sheet, but they don't have a lot of cash, of free liquid cash, because they're a cash in, Bitcoin out circle. So and so far it's been a virtuous one, right? And you think about all these guys like him who are just pure crypto. And there's this, I feel like what we're seeing is the market realizing, or at least other people who are looking at it saying, well, there's a way perhaps to out strategy in the sense that how do you get Bitcoin but stay liquid? So if there are these insane ups and downs, and if you do have put orders that get completely blown out, can you pay back investors if there's like a quote run on whatever it is you're offering? And so that diversification is we're seeing, like you just said, like Tether, like aligning yourself with like sort of like a government, right? Tether buys treasury bonds and acts like a country, but they're a private company, right? They have more. We talked about this for years. We've been looking into this. How do stablecoins keep their peg? Tether's answer is, well, we own more United States treasury bonds than most countries in the world. Saudi Arabia, Germany, Israel. And those have a yield of like 5%, 5.4% interest every year. So they just keep acquiring treasury bonds to make a stable coin. And they're not even involved in Bitcoin, but everyone kind of sort of thinks they are. Maybe they have a little bit on the balance sheet, but it's not consequential.
I just think this supports so much of our overall thesis of just new types of companies being formed, new shells created. We used to talk about DAOs and now public companies and mergers and reverse mergers and initial coin offerings and the all famous IPO on the New York Stock Exchange. But now you can just hold Bitcoin and go ring the bell on Wall Street as a publicly traded company. I want to be a bank. And some people get the banking license and some people don't. And who is the great decider and maybe the great divider between the Securities Exchange Commission and the Commodities Future Trading Commission? And when those two governing bodies decide who's going to get which side of the token, which side of the market are they going to play on, the rule book is
Tails.
It's there. And you just got to know which game you're playing and what the rules are for that game. And I think that is where you are now seeing this reemergence of new capital formation, even as we're talking about Saylor's like derivative products. I think that's how he refers to them. It's like, this capital formation scheme almost. And it is. It's
S is for scheme. Speculation.
And this is why people don't trust the crypto markets. But if you follow, I think, where the regulation is leading, and maybe even those senators who are looking at this market structure bill here in Washington. I heard some rumor on the street yesterday that Mark Warner was getting briefed by the Government Blockchain Association and that they were cautiously optimistic that they were going to be able to bring the market structure bill before Christmas. It seemed like it was about to happen. Brian Armstrong would have felt like his timing would have made it seem like it was going to happen, but it seems like there's just too much pending right now. And my guess is one of those questions that some senator raised their hand in a closed door session and was like, well, if Michael Saylor has all the Bitcoin and I want to go buy all the Bitcoin, how is he going to have enough money to pay me out? Well, we've been here before, sir. It was called the bank failure, too big to fail. And so we make the banks have cash reserves. Oh, well, yeah, as long as he's got cash reserves, he's got good old greenbacks there in MicroStrategy and Reston, we can go ahead and let him go. We can go ahead and get past that market structure bill. That's my guess, is that somebody's looking at, they asked that question, that caused, we felt it. We all felt it here in the market of like, what the hell was this sideways movement? Why? Why? The big guys are coming in. BlackRock, Vanguard, putting it in your 401k. 21 shares going public, ETFs galore. You get an ETF, you get an ETF, you get a banking license, you get a banking license. The money is flowing, hundreds of billions of dollars moving and shaking out. Where is it going to land? Well, my guess is they had to, instead of continuing to buy more Bitcoin, he had to pile up the cash.
Yeah, pile up the cash. You just said it, because if you're buying hundreds of $billions of Bitcoin, that Bitcoin price doesn't go from 125K to 90. It's going down, even though the inflows and the outflows are at all-time highs. Like, there's a new ATH, there's a new all-time high metric, which is how much sideways money. Because to shore it up, maybe you got to buy spot ETFs. Maybe you got to buy treasury bonds. Maybe you got to invest in stuff that looks and sounds like Bitcoin, but is just cryptocurrency. C is for cryptocurrency, generally. And everyone is lost in the sauce. And I think that what you're describing is exactly that. It's that there was a sensitivity. The talk got loud enough of, well, what happens if Bitcoin swings down 30% or 50%? What if it goes down back to 20,000? Does that just eradicate all of these gigantic new businesses? Is 21, is strategy, is the, what's the Japanese one? It's called like Meta World, the
Right,
gaming company
right.
that turned into Bitcoin treasury company. Like, do they just all go away like FTX? Are they going to be in shackles like Sam Bankman-Fried, dressed up as a turkey praying for a pardon next Thanksgiving? No. They're like, well, wait. That's a good point. It's a good point. As a matter of fact, I have $80 billion, and I normally would have bought Bitcoin with it, but I'm now going to go buy a whole bunch of weird derivatives. D is for derivatives. And D is for C and D are for confusion and delay. Let's just figure out a way to keep saying those great things that BlackRock likes to say, and US Bank and Fidelity, Wells Fargo, the inflows, the outflows, the ETFs. There's a Solana ETF, for Christ's sake. There's an ETF for every one of the dudes who was sitting in the rotunda at the inauguration. And hey, if you have that $80 billion, you can't just sit on it. What company just sits on that much cash, collateralized cash? Nobody. Put it somewhere. Put it to work. Okay. But don't buy Bitcoin. We want the price nice and low. Because then when we say go and pile in, we're going to get a fat discount. And then we're going to just run away with it. The dish is going to run away with the spoon.
I'm reading here, this is from 6 days ago, the New York Times covering the Larry Fink and Brian Armstrong event, dismissing fears of a coming crypto winter, taking the stage.
There you go. That's
literally, and dismissing it. Why would they do that? Why would they feel comfortable doing that? Why all of a sudden is Jamie Dimon literally admitting, once again, I guess this is the second admission. Maybe he has to see 3 ghosts before he really remembers that he forgot that he remembered that Bitcoin is digital gold. And by Christmas time, he'll know and he'll remember, and that market structure bill may be the Christmas present to allow all of these companies and all this capital formation that's already left the station. It's already taken off. And I do think you have to then put back in, if we're talking about billions of dollars of sideways moving money in and out of cryptocurrency, in and out of stable coins across. Are you a bank? Are you a bank? I don't know. Are you a bank? I haven't gotten my banking license, but we got the ETF one. We're over here. This is how you can trade our token. Everybody gets a token. You get a token. I get a token. Creators get a token on Zora. Coinbase is handing them out for just creating content on Base. Warner Brothers, Paramount, Netflix, they have to have real world assets to back that. Maybe that's why the Saudis are in a hostile takeover situation. Maybe that's why Jared Kushner re-entered the chat at what feels like the 10th hour of a 12-hour negotiation now and says, we must have this. We have to have control over this. If we're going to sell trillions of dollars in stable coins and shit coins and meme coins and creator coins, and you get a token and you get an ETF, and there's money being printed on the Ethereum blockchain and all these layer 2s, guys, we need real world asset worth that much.
Well, and let's not forget Jared Kushner. I mean, I think that's a great point. Let's just switch over to Jared Kushner for a second, who literally in real life looks like one of those plastic faced dogs that was just shown at that art event where the billionaires are on those little
Love
those
it.
little dogs.
Beeple.
Yeah,
Beeple's bots.
The Beeple's bots. I mean, and this is a guy who, remember, at the end of the first term, him and Ivanka go like riding off into the sunset, literally sort of separating themselves from the chaos and the noise that was they trying to overturn the Joe Biden election. We don't want to have any more part in government. We're going to go back to the private sector. We just, we're New Yorkers, and through and through. When was the last time you've been to the opera, honey? It's been a while. Let's go see some shows. Let's go out and have dinner. Is your coat still fur? It is. It's not faux. Great. Let's go get dusted off. Let's go do that. And then 11th hour, in comes homie, who apparently never did seem to stop texting his Saudi Arabian pals when he was supposed to be out there, quote, negotiating the Middle East peace. Remember that? Like that guy. And it's only been he's like 6 years older. He still looks like he's 20 years old. And he's there talking to these sheiks, getting money, hard cash. And at the same time, he is fully like diversifying and pouring that cash into all kinds of digital products. So bullish on Ethereum, so bullish on every one of the Trump family's, digital interests. So if you consider the acquisition of Netflix of Warner Brothers, which I have family members who work at Warner Brothers. They are terrified of the prospect of it going to the Paramount Trump coalition, effectively, and this hostile takeover bid, because they want creators. They want Netflix to be aligned with them. People who make content want to entertain the world, in the words of the CEO of Netflix. But here comes old Kushner, old Cushy, with all his pals. He's still like literally kind of getting the sunscreen off his face from hanging out in the desert, and comes in and goes, "Oh, what's the bid? You said it's billions, but it's under 100 billion? We can
this.
just let me put on my Meta Ray-Bans and pull some more value out of the ether, and then we'll just what's it going to take? Is it 110? Is it 120? Do you want us to take whatever, do some reverse debt? I got some friends in finance who can, kind of service your debt for you. We'll do that on the side. And, I know this guy's got Solana all day. We can go ahead and print a little bit more of that and just take care of this." And suddenly the number actually ceases to matter. Now, in normal circumstances, the number of billions, in normal circumstances, that would just say, oh, well, it would be obvious, right? The seller would want to go with the buyer they like. But if you look at the way in the last 10 years that everyone in technology and in money and in banking has realized there is a ceiling, and you're not going to break through that ceiling unless you know or have access to people in the federal government. So as soon as you look at this guy rolling in, and he has the ability to say, well, we'll just change the rules. Like, there's been an instruction manual written. It was not more than, say, 15, 20 shows ago, that the words, the Howey test, were still being said in the same breath as when the SEC and Gary Gensler was shaking down crypto companies and telling you what a security was and wasn't. And then the instruction book is right here. It says there's a Howey test, there's a thing, there's all this stuff. 100 years old, it's been written, everyone loves it. And then these guys came in and said, "We talk about instructions." To throw that one out the window, we're going to rewrite it, because as long as the numbers appear on your computer screen in your bank account, well, it's real. You don't have to ask where the money came from. It's on the screen on your phone. And you can tell me it's illegal, but I'll tell you, no, it's not. Let me call my father-in-law for a second. Hey, we need to have the CFTC off this one. We need to have this other division of the government. How many new divisions of digital oversight have been created in the last 4 years? We went through a show rattling off acronyms of government departments. This is before Doge, of course. But we're talking at a point now where I don't think it's a question of if the money is going to come. It's just a when and from whom. And if Kushner gets control of Warner Brothers and the Trump family, you better hold on to your hat, your glasses, and your little short pants. Because all of a sudden, any kind of content that's even remotely disparaging to the American military just disappears. LGBT plus content suddenly is harder to find. Who knows? you could just imagine the censorship. C is for censorship, not just China.
Well, damn, it took a serious turn there, but in a I'd say a good way. It's just good to pay attention to. We just rattled off all of this from a money flow markets perspective through cryptocurrency, onto politics, into the story, the market-making story that is stealing headlines currently with this Netflix, Paramount, and the Trump administration all in the arena, all in the digital metaverse. And I bet we could go check the Polymarkets.
I'm looking at it
And
literally
go
right
get
now.
a pretty good idea of where things stand.
19% says Netflix will accomplish it by the end of 2026.
So
19%.
this is not going to be a short-term negotiation. I think we called this, we have the receipts now, but to go back and see that some of this market making, this manipulation happened in plain sight to increase the value, to literally increase the importance of this decision. Its price has gone up and up and up. And now it's going to be tangled up in court for at least the next 12 months. There will be antitrust lawsuits, just like we saw with Google and Chrome and the holdout and the shakeout for how all that stuff goes down. You're going to see the same thing play out from an artificial intelligence perspective, what this means for corporate media. If you owned the machine, if you owned Warner Brothers, and you could point your favorite AI at it and tell it, go forth and create, and here are the rules, as you say. No anti-military, no anti-Trump rhetoric, no LGBTQ-friendly content. There's your rules and stipulations, AI. Boom, go. You don't even, that's where it gets really, really dark and good for us to pay attention to. That's how important this is. And maybe it's worth placing your first bet on a Polymarket just to take the other side of that bet. To put your money where your mouth is.
Guess what the other side of the bet is? There's a 19% that Netflix closes it by the end of next year. There's an 18% that Paramount closes it by the end of next year. Turns out it's actually just a heads or tails. It's a coin flip. It's a digital coin flip. And I didn't think about this, but the artificial inflation of value is now really in play. Because if money is money is money, and we know, one thing I like to always say is you can always go get more money. It's just a question of how expensive is the money that you're getting, right? Because that's the twist. So let's not forget, you mentioned Chrome. That just brought it back to me. Perplexity, I think it was Perplexity, right? A startup. They offered something like more than $30 billion to buy Chrome, of which they didn't even have that much. Like they didn't even have at that moment that they made that bid that amount of cash or value. So similarly, if you talk about, Trump and company and Paramount rolling in and saying like, well, wait a second, 85 billion from Netflix, how about 110? And then just sort of wait and see what the crowd says. And like, okay, 115, or you can just start saying, or maybe it just ends up making it so that, Tommy Cruise and Skydance have to pay 150 because it just keeps going up. Or maybe MBS just comes in he was just at the White House being paraded around with Trump. Maybe he just rolls in and is like, I'll just buy it myself. Like, I'm going to do a hostile takeover. Like, if one company can do a hostile takeover, can't many, as long as they get to enough board members and kind of get them on sides?
Even as you were saying, Perplexity didn't have enough money to buy the piece of Chrome. They were going to be effectively a Chrome holding company, right? Like buy a futures in Perplexity, which we're promising we'll go and be the bag holder for Chrome if we have said investments. And that's the same thing that we're watching play out on the public markets, which the company doesn't even have to have an operating business. Doesn't have to have a product or a service that they sell. They just have to have enough Bitcoin in the back.
Just an LLC and a giant pile of Bitcoin. C is for Chrome. C is for Chrome as well. It's just C is for custodian, because there's the other thing, right? I also learned, and we were talking about this earlier, but you don't actually have to have the Bitcoin because there's someone else who is your custodian. We were digging in to C is for Coinbase. Where is Coinbase's Bitcoin? Well, Coinbase has some, but then also a bunch of banks that seem to have their custodians. Where does Michael Saylor's strategy keep his Bitcoin? Turns out some of it's on Coinbase. They're also the custodian there. Where does Perplexity keep its money that it uses to try to buy Chrome? It doesn't have it just sitting in the back room among the file cabinets. It has some custodians. And you start looking at like Cantor Fitzgerald. Well, gosh, why how's Cantor Fitzgerald enters seized for chat? Because Cantor Fitzgerald has all kinds of dirty ties to Epstein and to like some real lascivious individuals in government and in banks. And why are they interesting? Well, they're the custodians of Tether's Bitcoin and money. So you start to actually look around at this really, if you imagine the Beautiful Mind or whatever, where you got a wall with little pins and little pictures of people's faces. And then we have colored string and yarn that we connect to show, all right, who is the custodians, who are the custodians, and who are the banks. And then it's like, oh, well, we got to put MrBeast's face up there because now he's a bank, right? He might be the first. He's going to be the beginning. We should get to this, the bank of influence.
Yeah.
And the internet of influence,
what a way to come around to it. But we just talked through at a corporate level, at a business, at these big institutions, and I'll pull it all the way down to the creator on YouTube being able to set up their own creator token. Anybody can now launch a token on Base. I did so today on an app called Zora, where my username @MikeToner now is $Mike Toner, and you can send me as much Solana as you'd like on the Base layer 2 blockchain. Any post that I make, should it go viral and you want a tip, it is a one tap like, and I can set a 25 cents, here's a nickel. You can flip that coin as you bet on your Polymarket. But now the friction for an individual creator, anyone who creates online, to get paid for what they create, especially the #1 YouTuber, none other than Jimmy Donaldson, hailing from South Carolina, known as Mr. Beast, launching his money sign Beast token, and the ability now to invest in him and to invest in his next video and bet on it, just like I would on a Polymarket. How many views is he going to get? Is it going to be good? Guess what? I'm betting it probably is. He has unlocked the formula. He knows how to create content that other people want to watch. He knows how to entertain the world. Isn't that valuable?
Maybe he might buy Netflix.
Man.
It's the same rhetoric. All right, I'm going to call this one. Mr. Beast there's going to be a Beast market.
And now the people can buy it.
And it's going to be called Beast Mode because it was never trademarked by Marshawn Lynch.
Nice.
So he's going to have an ability, because like what you just said, what we're describing for all of our listeners is this, there is an amazing transformation that's happening. There were all of these companies that they were in their own way, in their own markets, in their own business services, were like elegant caterpillars, and they had nailed something. The meta world in Japan, online gaming, Mr. Beast, influence and videos on the internet. Like you can go down the line. Michael Saylor, I forget what strategy was before it was strategy. Like it was
data company.
A data company. So then all of a sudden they each kind of go into their own mental chrysalis, and they emerge these beautiful buoyant butterflies lifting up off the ground. B is for beautiful, buoyant butterflies. And Mr. Beast. And they realize, wait a second, I can just align all the things that I've done well with also being a bank. And as soon as that light bulb goes on in someone's head, you realize if you're the thought leader in that particular vertical, well, my God, I mean, talk about turning on instant value. Instant values. Because why would Mr. Beast need to go to Polymarket to have people bet on whether he's going to do something? He's going to have them betting directly with him, with Beast coins.
Yeah, I mean, and talk about that, like the ability to then create derivatives on derivatives, where if I'm like going into a Beast game with my 10 buddies and we're pooling our resources to create a investment vehicle, gaming vehicle, whatever it is we're going to vehicle inside of this Beast game. And he just set up his own Beast world in Abu Dhabi, as a physical installation.
Yeah, Netflix.
So we're bridging.
Spy Army Base, IRL, metaverse.
You gotta do it all.
So Is World War III purely going to be waged in the metaverse? It's starting to feel like the blur, the phygital, the physical and digital, the ability to create real world experiences in Abu Dhabi. Like Netflix is like, hey, come to Pennsylvania, come to New Jersey, come to California. We got the Warner Brothers studio now. And Mr. Beast is like, if you're not flying to Abu Dhabi, I don't even want you on my show. I don't even want you in my park. Do you know how much a churro costs here? It costs 10 Beast coins.
I mean,
what's the value of that? Well, it changes every day. It depends on how influential you are.
You started to go down this path of like, you can bet with Mr. Beast, or you could bet inside of his world, right? You can pay to play and spend your time and money and energy inside of his world. And now there can be economic value exchanged inside of that little world. And the same is true now for any publicly traded company, where you can sort of own the token, you can support the creator, you can buy their products, you can visit their destination, you can watch and consume their content. You can create new content which has value, and that stream of value is woven between the physical world, the digital world, with the value exchange happening now at a per interaction level. Like each user is the node creating that value, and the final place of that is, this takes me all the way back to self-sovereignty. S is for self-sovereignty, and having self-custody over your assets and trusting yourself as the bank. I'm the bank. And yes, I've got Bitcoin in a hardware wallet that I can borrow against. And I can take a loan out from myself and pay my future self, because as my mama always told me, bet on yourself. So you can now do that and be the bank without the intermediaries, and you can accept payments. And you can go and create, and you can participate in these little micro metaverse worlds with your favorite creators. You participate alongside them. It's a win, win, win for everyone.
Well, and if you look underneath the carpet on what really is kind of going on with, it's not just Mr. Beast becomes a bank. It's not just Tether gets more treasury bonds than another country. It's that they're effectively are more and more the proliferation of stable coins and the gray area of what that even means anymore, right? Well, they're supposed to be pegged to a fiat currency, right? That's the idea of a stable coin. They're stable because they're attached to the American dollar. They always are worth $1. Well, Mr. Beast kind of sort of, to a lot of people, would feel like a stable coin, because if he has a whole economy and he has the gamers and he has the kids, to them, a V-Buck in Fortnite or a Robuck in Roblox is a stable coin in that metaverse, in that world, right? Because to the kids, the Gen Alpha, Gen Zs, they need to take $1. Not that they even hold $1 anymore, but they take at least their parents' credit card number and they say, well, we're going to get $20 worth of this. Well, what's the value of those V-Bucks? Well, obviously it's pegged to the dollar, right? There's a stable value. Dave & Buster's has done a great job of this, right? They have a stablecoin, the Dave & Buster's card. You can't use this for video. You can't use cash for video games. Got to use our Dave Buster credits. And hey, we'll give you a little benefit. It's like an ICO benefit. If you spend $100, we'll give you $120 worth of Dave & Buster stable coins. So when people start when everyone understands who's young, well, what's the value of Bitcoin? One Bitcoin. Well, it's one Bitcoin. What's the value of one Mr. Beast coin? Well, it's one Mr. Beast coin. And over time, that value changes, but it always stays the same in the transaction mindset. It may be that it costs a few extras to get that gem or to get that influence tomorrow versus yesterday, but is the value of the Mr. Beast coin still one Mr. Beast coin? Yes. So when I think about all of that as like this kind of rolling sense of what a stable coin is, this week, I'll send this to you, our friends at the IMF, not the Impossible Mission Foundation, which is Ethan Hunt and Tom Cruise, but the International Monetary Fund, have issued a paper that is warning the world that stable coins are going to accelerate currency substitution. And it's going to weaken central banks control. Why in the world would these guys need to come out and start talking about this right now? And when you think about it, a country that is being sanctioned by the United States because we don't like what they're up to, like say Brazil, literally Bolsonaro or someone can just say, you know what, guys, the entire currency base of our country is no longer going to be what it is. It's going to be MrBeast coins. It's going to be, you just pick it. It could be anything that isn't related to the US dollar, because then the US cannot sanction you. And we've already seen this going on with countries with Bitcoin, with Ethereum, Russia buying bullets from China, etc. But this is now every country can just decide central banks are not for us. And there's no military that can control us because we don't have to use American dollars. We're not just de-dollarizing. It's like the new thing is stablecoin has taken this synonym now for de-dollarizing. And what they don't get is, like, before it was de-dollarizing. Okay, there's 206 countries in the world or whatever it is. There's only 205 others currencies that can de-dollarize us. No. There's like 20 million.
Everyone has a token.
You have a token. What if China decides to use toner coins? The United States government can't do anything.
Like, I'm reading this. This is from the block. IMF warns stablecoin may accelerate currency substitution, weaken central bank control. This is from Timmy Shin, December 4th. The IMF said that the rise of dollar-backed stablecoins and their easy cross-border use may push people and businesses in unstable economies to favor dollar stablecoins over local currencies. So yeah, all of a sudden,
surprise.
If Beast Coin is worth more when I'm in Beast World, well then yeah, I'm just gonna get as much Beast Coin as I can. Or in a world where the US dollar is not worth as much as it was yesterday, I'm going to get as much Bitcoin as I can in order to find a place to park my money, to take out my life insurance, to go public, to create financial derivative instruments around, and live off of the yield. That is the crazy part about where all of what we've just gone from the highest levels of MicroStrategy and BlackRock, Larry Fink and Brian Armstrong, all the way through to Mr. Beast, you and I, creators using these same technologies, decentralized finance at its finest. D is for decentralization. I mean, this is where it's going. And that is why Larry Fink and Brian Armstrong aren't worried about some crypto bear market, because the IMF, no guys, the IMF, did you see that thing that the IMF put out? They're worried about stable coins taking over the financial markets.
And they would never use those words. Like the IMF, the World Bank, these are institutions that basically pretend that crypto doesn't even exist. These guys go loan American dollars to countries. They force loans down their throat. And it also begs this question which is, when is the IMF and when is the World Bank going to, or how are they going to react to the idea that Polymarket and prediction betting services, as they proliferate, as you have Trump Social's version, as you have Mr. Beast's version, as you have Kashi and CNN's version, you have all these different lenses on a truth layer. And the one article I want to leave you with is one that hit, which I thought was really fascinating, because it calls into question, who is it? AI? Is it a human? Is it a combination of the two? Who validates and then settles the bets, right? Who says, now some bets are very simple. It's like, well, when is the Federal Reserve going to raise the rate? Okay, they do. The guy Powell comes out, he announces it. Everyone can look at the time and the stamp and okay, it resolves. But some are a little more fungible. Let's use the word F is for fungible, because there was this great story, which is that there was an unauthorized edit made to the Ukraine frontline map talking about Russian advances and Ukraine advances. And there were Polymarket bets as to when Ukraine, or how long they would hold one line and when Russia would advance past the line. And there was some set of maps that in this case are supposed to be the origin of truth to settle this bet. Now remember, when a Polymarket or any other market bet is settled, that's gone off the table. It's not like you can just call that one back and like, there's no, hey, we need VAR. Let's go look at the slow motion video and see, wait, was he out of bounds? Like, no. It gets resolved, the money moves, and that's that. Moves on to the next thing. So these mofos just decided, well, we have a lot of money at stake and it's not moving the way we liked. So let's just go in and kind of hack-ish the map and show the advance being artificially further than it was. Polymarket, whoever looks at it, says, oh yeah, these hit, and then pay everybody out, but the maps were faked. So if there's multiple lenses looking on a truth layer, maybe there are multiple truth layers. And there has to be like an aggregate to decide if it's true or not.
You've gone here before. I get exactly where you're going, but you then need indexes of truth markets.
You sound like a Web 1 grandpa. We're going to have indexes and we're going to have like file serve with like folder date changes, Google Doc revision histories. Wait a second. This map was modified 6 times in the last month. Who authorized that? Or, I mean, again, this is a very simple example, but it's one I think that's very damning in general. We talk about the amount of money that can be used to manipulate the truth by the amount of money you put on a bet in Polymarket, but that's actually the false narrative. That's the red herring. Because ultimately, if you can influence the truth by the data that the market looks at to validate it, then it doesn't even matter how much money you have.
I think this is why I talk a lot about provenance and authenticity and these themes of know your issuer and know your customer, KYC and KYI. I mean, there are going to need to be new mechanisms for this zero trust transfer to know that I am actually banking with my bank, that when I'm scanning my retinas, that I'm authorizing the agent that I am instructing, like new mechanisms to 2-factor, 3-factor, 4-factor authenticate through these truth layers so that you know which metaverse you're in. And I've said that before too, knowing which game you're in, which token we got to play with, where it's going to settle, where it's going to resolve, and what is the real world asset that's backing this game so that when shit goes sideways and somebody tells me they've got the truth, I've got to have the receipts, hopefully date stamped, so that I can then go create a new market, a court of law market, where I can have everybody come and say in the town square, you all look at the receipts and you tell me who was right here. And that is a derivative on the truth. And I can't wait to see what happens between now and Christmas as we head into 2026. It's, stay warm and cozy, but spring is coming.
Spring is coming. The Wachowski brothers were more forward looking than I think anyone ever gave them credit for. I imagine me as Neo running down a hallway, a Twitter hallway, and there's a door every 5 feet. And we're with a key master, and we just got to get the right key to open the right door to get out of the Polymarket with our money, because Agent Smith is right behind us. A is for the agent who I just built, who I've set on a task to go modify war maps of Ukraine and Russia. Like, the plurality of Agent Smiths is exactly where we are. And we now need to find a way, a layer, a view, a lens to organize the agents who ultimately are going to be retrieving and giving us a view of the truth. I'm going to go rewatch the Matrix trilogy. I feel like there's a lot more in there.
All I want for Christmas is an index. We'll do it again, maybe one more time before the Christmas holiday. Stick to it in December, and we'll do it again next week.
Talk to you then. Talk to you next week.
Peace.